Hello, hello. Welcome to the Rise Up with Margarita show. I'm Margarita Alcantara, and every week on Mondays at 2 p.m. I do a new Rise Up with Margarita episode that really focuses on stepping into your power and rising up as a light worker. And today's topic is called Why Not Allowing Yourself to Receive is Blocking You from Your Power. So this is really, really important to connect with because first of all, we're still in the Lionsgate energy. I'm so excited about that. And actually yesterday was my 8-8 activation that I performed. So many of you attended and I'm so glad that you were there. It was really, wow. It was just so amazing and powerful. We received intel from the felines, from our galactic allies of light. I also channeled some light language. And we activated some new grids on the planet and really did some powerful intention setting around what we are creating here in the world. And so it was just a very, very powerful gathering. So if you were there, thank you so much. And so that really brought to mind that energy around receiving, right? Because it's not only important when you're a light worker to clear out and release things, let go of things, because that's very important. But the other part of it is to be intentional about what it is you want to be receiving and to allow yourself to be open to receiving, because that's one thing that shows up for a lot of light workers is that they may be great with letting go, but they're not so great sometimes with receiving. And so today's topic is going to be around how light workers block themselves from receiving, why it actually becomes an issue that shows up in their lives when they don't receive, and what you can do to shift into a state of receiving. So I'm just going to go right into it. And so in terms of why not allowing yourself to receive is blocking you from your power, and how light workers block themselves from receiving is that, a lot of it has to do with love and money and things that, other things you get to receive. And one thing, if you've watched my work long enough or checked out my work long enough, you know that the way you welcome and receive love is also the way you welcome and receive money. And it's very much connected. And I've noticed this a lot of times with light workers is that, it shows up in their lives, in their relationships, in their bank account. And so some ways that light workers may block themselves from receiving money is not charging the worth, right? So, and I see this a lot with light workers when they either don't charge or they think it's gross to charge, or they make it sliding scale. And that's fine if that's like your the way you set up your practice or your business. Like just speaking from the acupuncturist perspective, there's you basically have to choose one. Like you can either choose to do sliding scale, or you can provide like a regular rate for your services, and but you can't choose both, at least for acupuncturists, because like it's actually illegal for us to be doing that. So that's why I don't do that. And especially in my private practice, and also I don't provide sliding scales anyway. But when light workers don't charge their worth, what that's usually indicating is that they're not seeing themselves as worthy, or they're not allowing themselves to receive that worth, right? Ruth Q Designs is saying, thank you so much for sharing this. I just found you. Yeah, so glad you found me. And yeah, because this is powerful information to really start to recalibrate that mindset, right, when you're a light worker. So you may not be charging what you're worth. So I see this often with the light workers when they're either doing the sliding scale, as I mentioned, or they're just simply not charging for their services, or they charge something that's really, really has nothing to do with their level of transformation they're providing. So like if you can imagine going in for surgery and paying $10 because that's how much you have on you, kind of thing, right? When the truth is that if that surgery provided like tremendous like growth for you or helped you with a certain issue, like that wouldn't be a commensurate value, right? So likewise, when you're providing your transformative work, if you are, let's say, providing a juicy, deep dive healing for someone, And then you're like, oh yeah, it's a $10 thing, right? And I'm just being really dramatic about it so it's a little bit more obvious. Because when we do that, that is not, like we say, it's under the guise of being accommodating or accessible. And there are ways to be accessible. You can, what I used to do is that I would have my regular rates in my private practice, but then I would have like one day out of the month where I was providing volunteer services at an organization that I really valued. So that's one way to do it. Or you can have like, a special extra day somewhere else where you're providing sliding scale, that kind of thing. So there are many ways to do it, but if your main thing is that you're either bartering or you're putting your stuff out there for like really, really cheap, just because you don't think people will buy, guess what kind of clients that attracts? It attracts the people who are just shopping around and they're not interested in their healing. They just want whatever is cheaper. And if that's the mindset, they are not a good client, right? Because if they're not focused on their healing, first and foremost, then no matter like how cheap or expensive it is not going to matter because they're not in the right frame set to even receive themselves. So that's one. They're also not open to receiving money, right? So that's another way light workers block themselves from receiving, is that they block money. So for instance, if people are giving you gifts, whether that be like, hey, I made this dish for you, or hey, like I created this for you, or hey, I have a gift of money for you. Light workers may sometimes be like, no, I'm good, or, that's okay. And that really, all this stuff around not receiving, that comes from issues around your worth, right? This comes from not seeing yourself as worthy to receive. And this even comes in love. So I see this with light workers. Exactly. Ruth Design says they don't take it as seriously either. Exactly. When people do come in, when you are not really charging your worth, it may have been an amazing thing you just offered them, but they'll just be like, they'll be that person. They will also be that person who will complain if your service or offering was like $1, right? Like they are that same person. So yeah, you're exactly right. That's a certain caliber of person that comes forward. And I'm seeing a remark here on Facebook. I'm a massage therapist and in a program for acupuncture. I tell other body workers they have to charge what will let them continue to commit themselves to being a healer. How are you supposed to be serious about what you do, or have your clients being serious about coming to see you without charging with what you need to prosper in this life? Yeah, and you know what? It's not even about, I need this money so I can live, because that's the old paradigm, right? And that's part of the whole light worker thing, is that, they have this belief too that money is from the old paradigm, which it's not. It's also one of those things that you get to transform into light. And it's about, my partner, he said something really powerful over the weekend around, taking something that is considered old paradigm and shifting it into light. And he said, actually what is the truth has been distorted, and then they're distorting that. And so what you're actually doing is distorting the distorted distortion. So that was like, say that 10 times fast, right? But he had a point there. And there's really this thing about light workers being in this state of receiving in such a way that it's not even about, the money thing being about survival, because that's not what money is about. And it doesn't need to be about that, right? It is about abundance. It is about seeing that everything around you is bountiful, abundant, and so therefore is the money as well. But in regards to the receiving, because this is all connected, right? When you're not open to receiving money or gifts, or you're not charging your worth, what you're telling the universe is, I'm not worthy. And so it's not an emotional response. It's not like a judgment on you. It's just more of like, if this is what you truly believe to be true, then we will continue with giving you what you're believing, right? And that's really what it's about. It's not about a judgment call on what you're choosing or deciding to do, or if it's right or wrong. It's just, if you're okay with that type of existence, then you're okay with it, right? Awesome. If you're not, and you're finding that it's keeping you stuck, then that's where you get to do some shifting. So some other ways that light workers block themselves from receiving is in relationships. So a lot of times I see this happen with light workers where they had some betrayal in some kind of romantic relationship at one point, and then they close their heart off, and then they find it hard to trust people. And so then they're really untrustworthy of everyone, right? But whenever you are not trusting yourself, when you're not trusting others, it's really a reflection of you not trusting yourself. And that's really what that's about. And so that is part of also the receiving thing too, because sometimes if you don't trust yourself, then you may not trust yourself in receiving love, money, abundance, joy, right? Because sometimes the back in the back of the mind, your mind is thinking, well, we've trusted before, we've opened our hearts before, and then look what happened, right? And so you can either function from that, or you can go for what you want. And so if you decide to go for what you want, you get to make those shifts to see yourself as worthy and to be that you're deserving of love, right? Because that's another thing that light workers have around receiving, is that they don't deserve it. They don't deserve the money, they don't deserve the love and all this other stuff, which is really a lie, right? Because if you really think about it, it's really up to you to not only believe in yourself, but you can believe in yourself as much as you like, but if you have not done the inner work around clearing out those issues around you feeling like you deserve this wealth and this joy and this expansion, then all that other stuff is not going to take. So that's how it can show up around how you block yourself from receiving, from receiving money, not charging what you're worth, not being open to receiving money, and also being closed off in your heart. So you're not receiving love, like you're expecting love, you want love, but if your heart's not open and you're functioning from this place of I'm going to be betrayed or I'm going to be effed over, then guess what? Your heart is not going to be open and you're not going to have fulfilling relationships. So you're not receiving. So that's how that can show up. There's some other ways too, but those are some of the main ways I've seen with light workers. And so this actually becomes an issue when it shows up in your life in this way, because if you are not allowing yourself to receive in love, in money, with relationships, romantically, platonically, then you will not allow yourself to not only receive, you'll end up being broke, or you'll stay broke. You will end up not being in relationships, and you'll end up being, connected with clients who don't value your work, or who are just shopping around, right? And we all know that those types of clients, are not in there to really do that deep work, which I know that you have that type of, that's what you provide, right? You are this catalyst for humanity. So it's going to be this big transformative experience you're providing. So you do want people who are going to value that, who are going to treasure what you're creating and the value that you're providing. And then how it looks like is not only does that affect your bank account, your relationships, but also you will end up not making your impact in the world and, helping more people, because you'll just be in this survival mode, right? Because when you're in survival mode, that's not being in your power at all either, right? Because if you're just like, I need money to survive, that's coming from a place of scarcity and a place of lack. And where we are in terms of our truth is that there is no lack. It's only abundance. And it might even be an abundance of lack mentality even, right? But still it's abundance. So this is something that gets to shift. And here's what you can do to shift into a state of receiving. So let's say with money, when it comes to charging for your rates for your services, that could look like, instead of it being dollar per hour, which is like old school, and I get it because I used to charge for that myself. Now it's more around the transformation I provide, right? And it's not about even charging according what's proper in your industry or what other people do. Like, I mean, never charge based on what other people do, right? Because that's not that, like, what other people do may or may not be commensurate with what you provide. So it actually would not be a good gauge. So if you were to tap into that place of alignment, and this is something that I help my clients, my private clients co-create, is really this understanding of their aligned connection to their worth and to their light and what they're providing in the world and their services. You know, I help them co-create their services too. But what it really takes is to really connect from the heart space around what is the transformation I'm providing rather than what is the time per dollar, right? Because we're very used to back in the days saying, okay, it's, I don't know, $100 for 90 minutes, let's say, right? So then you break that up, you divide 100 minutes by how many dollars that is, and then you're like, okay, it's this per minute, right? But that's very old school, that's very old paradigm, and now it's really about what is your transformation worth? How can it really shift someone's life, right? And that is what you then think about what your aligned value is from that. And that's what you base it on. So that's one way you can shift things around the value around your money so that you can receive in a more aligned way. And then also allowing yourself to clear any issues you may be carrying around lack, around deserving. And usually the deserving piece is around love. So, and what I found is that it's usually something in our childhood or past lives when we were like in poverty, that kind of thing. Or we got certain conditioning from those who brought us up. You know, of course, there's no judgment because we all have our own types of upbringings, right? But it's just, you know, sometimes when we've been told, oh, you're being greedy or you want too much or that kind of thing, right? And of course, you know, when you're a child and you want to eat, you're not being greedy, you're hungry, right? There's a difference. And so, but that programming then keeps going into our adulthood and it works until it doesn't, right? And so this is when you get to shift that mindset around what have I been carrying for my whole lifetime? Does this still work for me? And just get really curious. That's how the inquiry starts, is that you just start getting curious about, I've allowed this. This is what my experience is. I'm not getting the results that I want. What have I been believing that is creating this experience? And just get really curious about that. Because once you start, then that opens up a bigger inquiry on doing the deeper work. And so that will start to bring you into more clarity around what is it that you get to do that deeper work on. And then when it comes to, you know, even receiving love, and, you know, I say this to my clients every time, is that look at where you're not receiving love, and that's also where you're not receiving money. And usually what I found is that once they address that, then all of a sudden they get some like extra money in a check randomly out of nowhere, right? Even though we know that it's not random how this stuff works, because that's how money consciousness works, right? Money is not evil. This old paradigm, I did a whole reel on it, right? And even a carousel on it too. But the truth is that it's really about what are you believing about it? You know, there's no emotion attached to money. It's literally just neutral. And it's a tool. And so where you're not allowing yourself to receive love is also where you're not allowing yourself to receive money. So in relationships, that could look like shutting your heart off, not really being fully invested in relationships, even though like on paper, that person maybe that you're dating might be a good fit, but you're not really allowing yourself to be invested emotionally in that relationship because you're not trusting that it'll be helpful or that that person will show up for you, right? And so there's that lack of trust thing there. And so that's also reflective too. Wherever you're not showing trust and love, you're also not showing trust in money. And because money is neutral, it's this thing where you're just like, okay, where do I get to trust? Where do I get to trust my abundance? Where do I get to trust that I deserve this? Where do I get to trust that I am worthy of receiving this, right? And so it's really about doing that deeper inquiry to shift about what you're currently believing around this that could be blocking you, and then starting to work that a little bit, right? Do some healing around some of that stuff. If it's connected to past life stuff or, childhood stuff in this lifetime, that's what you can do to start shifting things. Hi, Corey. Corey's saying, coming off the heels of yesterday's activation, this is helpful. Thank you. You're welcome. And that's really my intention, right? That was my intention to really, because this whole Lionsgate thing, and then also yesterday was a new moon in Leo. So there's all this newness, creating new intentions. And so everyone's all about letting go, right? But the shamanic way is that when you take out, you also put back in, meaning that, not putting back in what you took out, but like the story around that is when you let go and remove things that are no longer serve you, you actually input that which does. And so it's not like this removing and then you're just like this depleted being, right? Like you get to be intentional too about, well, what do I want to receive now? How do I want that to look like? And here's the other outcome. If you are blocking yourself from receiving, and I see, like, I hate to say it, ladies, but the women do this a lot, where they block themselves from receiving because they're like, I can do it on my own, or they can't do it right, or that kind of thing, right? Well, the truth is usually we have not given them the chance to do it correctly, right? Like whoever they is. And so that's the thing, is that, keeping on point with this topic being why not allowing yourself to receive is blocking you from your power, is really about, you're going to get exhausted if you don't allow yourself to receive. If you are too consumed about being in control, which is really connected to lack of trust, right? Because when you're not trusting others, you are saying, well, just let me do it. Right? I'll just do it because you can't do it, right? Or you're not believing other people can take care of you. You're not believing that the universe can take care of you, or that God has your back, right? That's really the dialogue that's going underneath that. So that's really about, and then when you have that kind of mentality, a lot of them come back to me and they're like, I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. I'm doing everything, right? And that's because they're not allowing themselves to receive. So that's a thing there. And so when you are allowing yourself to receive, here's what happens. You actually start having more energy because you're delegating, right? When you're a spiritually conscious entrepreneur, showing up in the world as a light worker on purpose and offering your services to people, you are also delegating, and you are like, let's say, for me, for instance, and for a lot of spiritually conscious entrepreneurs, it is at least having an assistant, right? At least having an assistant. I actually do have a team that I work with that keeps me on board and coasting along. And you get to have that too. And so it's about delegating and just like, there's this saying in Tagalog that says bahala na, right? Which is basically like go with the gods. And what that really is about, that saying is really about just letting it go, giving it up to God. That's what that's about. So you get to do that too and just be like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do my best, and then the rest, giving it up to God, right? Because you can't control other people's reactions, but you can control your reactions, and you can control your intention around what you want to be experiencing in life. And so that's what empowered lightworkers do when it comes to receiving, is that they allow themselves to receive love. So they clear out, whatever blockages they have at their heart chakra, so that they're no longer stuck in the whole betrayal thing, or like people are going to, F me over and that's going to happen and all that, right? Because that's all a reflection of you not trusting yourself. So they do that inner work to clear out that trust stuff. And Annalisa saying, thank you. You just said what I needed to hear. And I think she also said something earlier too. Yeah, I'm feeling exhausted, so drained. Wow. Yeah. And so that's really what can show up a lot, right? When you say that I'll take care of it, or you need to have control over things, right? That's really a lack of trust issue. So as I was saying, empowered light workers, they do that inner work so that they trust themselves, so that they can trust others. in their life, and that they can transmute that hardness and that bitterness in their heart into true openness in their heart. And then what does that allow? That allows for the universe to do its magic. So not only romantic relationships, but aligned partnerships for, like, let's say in whatever you're creating with your business, for like allies, new colleagues, right? When you're open in your heart, you are connected with what's aligned, and then you're also connected with your purpose. And so that's why, sometimes I hear a lot of light workers say, well, I'm not connected with my purpose, but oftentimes they're not connected with their heart, because their heart already knows what their purpose is. So if you're not connected to that, that can be very connected. And then when it comes to your money, empowered light workers allow themselves to receive money by charging for the value of the transformation they're providing, right? Like, even if other people say, oh, that's too expensive, right? Because other people's triggers about their own projections around what they feel is doable and capable on their end to create money is not your lack, right? That's not your scarcity mentality. That doesn't belong to you. So you don't need to own that energy that they're projecting onto you, which is really what that is, right? Because it's not that your services may be truly, out there and crazy. It's just that, there might be some outdated beliefs that that person may have around what they think is doable. Or also, there could be some value that you haven't yet conveyed to that person. So there's that. But an empowered light worker will charge the value of their worth. They will also receive their money in a very neutral way, right? So like, for instance, one thing that I've worked on with some of my clients when they first start speaking to clients on the phone, prospective clients, that is, they're very, very nervous. And I get it, because I was very nervous too when I first started out. And they're especially nervous about asking for the sale. And the truth is that, I'm not going to get too deep into this part, but this is relevant to the whole receiving thing, is that when you are selling, you are being in service. Because can you imagine, you have this offer that's so powerful, so divinely transmutative to the world, and you're not offering it? How dare you, right? Like, how dare you hold back on your powerful abilities and your gifts, because they could change the world, right? But if you're not sharing it and not offering it to the world, then they don't know that it exists, right? And then therefore they don't know that they can transform by the amazing things that you offer. So empowered light workers, they do know that, on the other hand. Oneness Coaching asks, how can we start that inner work about trust? I've been working on it, but the confidence comes and goes sometimes. Yeah, so it's consistency. It's about choosing you and just really being honest with yourself every single time, so like in any given moment, like, because sometimes when it's impulsive, that doesn't mean it's true. It just means it's your impulse, because that's something you've created as a habit in your life. So just because it's a habit doesn't mean that it's your truth, right? So you can actually break that if you're noticing, oh, that's interesting. I just noticed I didn't trust that person. And then start asking, what am I not trusting in myself about this situation? Start getting curious. And that was what I was mentioning earlier. Start getting curious about why you're choosing that, right? Why am I choosing not to trust this person? Okay, so I'm not trusting this person because I experienced XYZ in the past, which may have been actually related to you not trusting yourself. And because I see this all the time, the way this plays out, where they say, well, I trusted this other person in the past, and then, my intuition was wrong, and I ended up getting effed over, right? When in actuality, they weren't really trusting their intuition, they were trusting their fear. And when you're trusting your fear, you will get a fear response, right? So that's really all that is. So that's how you can start really doing that deeper work, is just by getting curious around the choices you're making. And then each time you see it come in again, and you're like, oh, I'm doing that thing again. And then question yourself, and it's like, is that absolutely true? Can I truly not trust this person? And then if that's a yes, then you get to make a decision there. If it's a no and you're noticing that it's more a reflection of yourself, then get curious about that and go deeper. So I hope that helps. And so, today's topic has been why not allowing yourself to receive is blocking you from your power. And I covered how light workers block themselves from receiving, not only with love, but also money and also all types of things, right? Why it becomes an issue that shows up in their lives. And as I was mentioning, it starts to reflect in your bank account. It starts to reflect in your relationships or lack thereof. It starts to reflect in you being exhausted AF because you're doing everything because you don't trust anyone, because you're not receiving help, right? And I can't tell you how many exhausted empaths I treat in my private practice. And it's really because they're taking it all on, right? They're taking it all on because, there's also that thing of, sure, they're being receptive when it comes to other people's energy, which is really interesting, but they're not receptive to clearing out other people's energy, nor are they receptive to receiving other types of energies such as abundance and wealth and love, right? So, if you're an empath, light worker, and you're hearing this, it's not your job to take care of other people's issues and other people's energies, unless they're actually saying, hey, here's the rate that you're charging for this service. Please address this for me, right? Because one thing's for sure is that just because people want to unload their pain doesn't mean that they're actually going to elevate in their frequency. All that results when you take on other people's pain is that then it spreads to you and they haven't learned their lesson, right? So then they're still in pain. So it doesn't really work. Been there, tried that. Won't be doing that again. So that's what I was sharing around why it can actually become an issue to not be in a receiving mode. And then I also shared what you can do to shift into a state of receiving. So does this help? I'm hoping this helps. I know some of you have shared that some of this has been helping you around how you're perceiving this, how you get to shift through the trust issues that you've been experiencing, that kind of thing. So I'm hoping this helps. And okay, it looks like it's resonating with people. I love that. So next week, I will be on for next week's live, which is Monday, because they're always on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern. So it'll be next week, the 16th. Wow, midweek already. The 16th of August at 2 p.m. Eastern. And Ruth Design says it helps a lot. Thank you for sharing. Oneness Coaching says very helpful. Thank you very much. Following me exactly at the right time. Yes, so good. Yeah, and it's just a really juicy topic. And there's zero judgment in all this, by the way. When we're doing this inner work, I'm all about calling out the crap that you are still holding on to because I'm taking a stand for you. You get to experience what it is you want to be experiencing in the world. That's right, Corey. Sounds like narcissist, empath, codependency. Yeah, there's definitely a codependency there if you don't notice it. Right? You can continue proliferating that. But that's something that you get to call out in yourself. So I do that very lovingly because you get to transcend that. It's not your job to hold other people's stuff and not receive for yourself, right? Because that will actually also, especially in a Chinese medicine sense, because I'm also a Chinese medicine practitioner, that will actually also mess up your digestive system. Because how that works, and this also can be related to chakras as well, is that when you are giving, and you're in this nurturing phase, but you're not nurturing yourself, then what can happen is that then, yes, not only are you depleted, but then now you're comfort eating and eating a lot of crap food, which doesn't feed your being or feed your light, right? And that very much is connected to the spleen energy. So the spleen energy in Chinese medicine is not necessarily about your physical spleen, but it's really about the energy of, that ground earth energy, right? Because that's the element of the earth. And so when it's out of balance, you're giving too much and not nurturing yourself. When it is in balance, Also, when you're out of balance, what will also happen is that there will be lots of cravings or zero cravings, or you won't want to eat, or your bowel movements will, be really erratic, all kinds of things with the digestion. And when it's balanced, your digestion is healthy, it's good, your bowel movements are regular and fully formed. And when it comes to the chakras even, that's also that place of your personal power. And if your personal power is getting constantly lambasted, or you're not clearing the things around your power, then you will too also have those things around your digestion, acid reflux. Eating disorders can stem from that chakra being out of balance too. And that's also from not receiving and not allowing yourself to receive that nurturing for yourself. So those are some of the ways how it can impact you. And whereas if you're empowered in your solar plexus chakra, then you're going to be able to make decisions. You're going to be able to trust yourself. You feel clear about how you're moving forward. You're not like hooked up on this whole, I feel controlled, or I'm controlling something or someone. There's none of that. It's feeling very balanced, and you're feeling connected to your own personal power. And so these are some ways that receiving or not receiving can also impact you. So I'm glad that this was helpful. And if you're just joining us now, the topic has been why not allowing yourself to receive is blocking you from your power. So we're wrapping up on that now, and I'm so grateful for you being here and showing up. And Annalise is asking, how can I receive properly? Sometimes I'm afraid to absorb bad things, so I think that, but that stops you a lot. So that's a trust thing, right? You're not trusting your own energy. You're not trusting your own intuition that you're going to be able to tell the good from the bad, right? But when you're not really connected to your heart, then you have no clue. So my first recommendation is to connect with your heart first, so that you can start really connecting with, well, what is my energy? Because you may be so, because this happens sometimes with empaths who don't have any healthy boundaries. That's another thing you need to do, is have healthy energy boundaries. And no, that doesn't mean you become a bitch, right? It means you just have healthy energy boundaries. And there's a difference there. And even if other people think you are, that's not on you, right? Like, they're not the ones putting themselves out there and providing that service and that work, right? So get clear in your energy, clear out your energy, right? Through saging, taking up some salt baths, whatever. And start getting clear on what is your energy and what is not. Connecting with your heart too is really powerful for that. So you can trust your intuition, because when you are just letting everything come in, that's why someone can get clogged up. That's why someone can just feel like they're only picking up bad things, because there's no discernment. So that's what you get to do. So I hope that helped, and I will see you next week on the 16th of August at 2 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to take it a step further, if this is something that you are ready to really step open, you're really ready to expand and go into the next level of your being, and you're connected to your purpose and your heart power as a light worker, and you want to go to the next step, and you want to do some deeper transformative work with me, DM me and let me know, and we'll take it from there. Have a great week, everyone.